much as you. I think that's. I mean, right?
Yeah. It'll probably stop in
Yeah,
like
just
a
do
minute.
that.
Yeah.
Every time you
Just
see
keep
it.
restarting it and a bunch of them will save. Okay, perfect.
Just like casual combo, or it's well, I don't do a lot of videos. People's gotta do some music videos. Anything
Okay. So everybody have their name tags, we're ready? Questions before we start? We had some issues on the quiz. Who emailed me about that? Yes,
I
right?
don't have the issues
I know, there was a couple of issues.
with the questions.
Yeah, the questions didn't
Yeah,
match the
and-
chapter.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and it also like, didn't like, I checked the answers and we're fine with the book, but it still gives me 60 out of 70.
Yeah,
Why?
there's a problem. Let me go back, I'll go back. Let's see if have the same issue with the next one. Hold on, let me go back, let me go to courses, and then let's talk about what we'll do today. Let me go to courses, 450, because it was a new book, so somehow it seemed like it got screwed up, the test bank or something. So let me go to 450. And let me just erase some of this, and we'll start. Let me make sure my mic is on. My mic is on, everybody's here. And we'll do some reports and so on. Okay. Let me close this and we'll talk about what we need. Okay, just a few announcements. There's no class next Wednesday. Due to the Jewish holidays, we will not have class. So I'll give a, you can put that in your notes. I'll give an assignment this week, and you can work on it during this, during those times. So if you need to, you can reach out to me. Otherwise, what's nice is, we can do some things virtually as well. So what I have planned today is we'll we'll set up the assignments and see what are the issues, and I'll do then some chapter assignments. And the key to the idea of health informatics is what? What's the major key to health informatics?
Like, what do you mean by major key, though? Like, I'm
That's right. If you think about health informatics, for health informatics to have any effectiveness, it needs what? Yeah,
privacy of patient information.
right. But what is the key? What's even underneath that?
Like interoperability.
Interoperability, and what else?
To have everything accessible online in the first
And what is
place.
everything?
Like,
What is that everything?
Data.
Data, okay? Right? So before, we need to get data. A lot of times you heard about big data, right? Who's heard about big data, right? The whole idea, we'll talk about that big data and why is it big and what is the big hype on that. But the key here is data that is, first of all, it has to be what? Something that we can rely on. Even before that it has to be a reliable. And what the key here is the essence of what the government was talking about, MU, which is what? Meaningful use. What was the purpose of meaningful use is what? To be able to do what? What's a major purpose of meaningful use? It's like we've been apart too long. What's the major purpose of meaningful use? Chelsea?
Be able to implement a better healthcare system
Better healthcare system on what? What else?
by being able to share data with other people.
Share data and what else?
Better ensure providers are using PHRs to the fullest extent.
To full extent, and what else?
Proper interoperability.
True operability, and what else?
Quality,
Quality, what is quality?
the care needs of the patient.
Okay, quality for the care, what else?
That people can learn from it in their families.
People can, right, interact with families, what else? Besides just the individual. Think beyond the individual.
Improves population health.
Population health, and right, when I'm gonna improve population health, and then I also wanna improve, let's say, Felipe's family's health, what do I need? I need basically data, and I need to have basically looking at best practices, right? I have have to be able to interpret my data to tell what is working, what is not working. I'm able to have, has anybody heard of personalized medicine? The idea that now I can do immunotherapy. What's the idea of immunotherapy? Is basically I can take my own cells and I can basically start helping to cure myself. It's all the personalized business. So here data is crucial, and data is crucial in terms of analytics. Taking from the population, taking my data that I can make hypotheses. Who's taken statistics before? Right? Anytime you're taking your statistics, I'm taking the sampling right to make hypotheses about generalizing to the population. It's just like when we're doing the polls, right? Well, have you ever seen the number of people they take in a poll? It's a small number, but it's supposed to what? Represent the population to be able to do forecasts. Are those forecasts always reliable? Look at the last election, right? That person wasn't supposed to win, right? It was all of a sudden a surprise. So there were errors in the forecast. So we'll look at today the idea of forecasting and analyzing data. And what was your assignment for today? Besides doing the quiz that wasn't quite like a quirky quiz.
The top 10 performing healthcare stocks.
Top 10 healthcare performing stocks. Did you do that, Monica?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll look at healthcare is like one of the big drivers to our GDP. It's one of the big drivers in the stock market, and who can then better equipped to know about who to invest in, what to invest in, is to be able to be in that healthcare environment, and that's what we're going to be doing today, is looking at ways to forecast and ways to analyze. And we'll look at healthcare stocks, so it's a better way to do that. How does that sound? All right? Hopefully my throat will last. Okay? So, that's what we're going to be doing today. So, let's do a couple of things here. Let's do some assignments, get together with some homework. We had some issues with the quizzes. I apologize. So, which quiz did we do last time? Quiz 3? What's the issue? And it seemed like another chapter. What chapter was that? It seemed like it was reflecting? 10. It seemed like it reflected 10. I don't know why. Hopefully. So look at 10 for 3. So let me just make an edit here. Edit test options. And let me just put a note here that look.
And what happens with the misgrading?
Yeah, we won't count it. That's what will happen. Okay? Looks like, and then I'll try to say, looks like chapter 10 with misgrading, with errors in grading. One of the things that we're learning is what? With technology, what do we learn? Abaya? That we're always, what do we want to do? At least document. You did a great job in terms of documenting, right? What are the issues? Who else had problems in getting in? Even who had sent me an email that they had problems? Was it you? Some people had problems even taking, right? Yeah, I mean, we even had problems taking the quiz. They blamed it on, I don't know what, but I think it was the cache that was in it. I don't know what were the errors here. Looks like, I know it was down, so they blamed it on us, so it's okay. All right, looks like chapter 10 with errors, okay? Let me just submit and then we'll do this. Let's see with, let me go to vital source here. And, let's look at bookshelf and let's just look at here. What the issue was. this should have been, and I'll cover it with you, on the, basically, when we deal with, healthcare data, you see here on the key terms of big data, we'll cover, the big data, we'll talk about data accuracy, data accessibility, data consistency, data precision, data relevancy, the timeliness we'll discuss today on data timeliness, data warehouses. So much data that will be filled with data. Databases. This is an important chapter. We didn't have enough time, I think. We talked about EHRs, which are really part of that data. So, let's even start with this. Databases. What's a database? Everybody understand my question? Yes, no?
A database is a bunch of information stored somewhere that you can access.
Okay. Let's be a little bit more articulate than a bunch of information. Okay, what's a database? Neil, what's a database? And if we don't know, we're not born with this stuff, so what do I want you to look at me? Yes, Ty.
A structured set of data that's easily accessible.
Ricky, you're on the right track, right? But this is better, so what are you saying now, Ty?
A structured set of data.
Structured, what?
Set of data,
Set of data,
especially one that's accessible in various ways.
accessible. Does that sound pretty good then, Deb? That we're talking about a set of data, and what are those data? What is data then comprised of? Data are comprised of a set of fields. And sometimes fields are called attributes. And in an Excel spreadsheet, we all know data in an Excel spreadsheet, right? What are the fields, my rows or my columns usually? Everybody understand my questions? What's my question then?
Sorry. You
The
asked me-
question is, I have a spreadsheet, you've seen a spreadsheet before, let me show you a spreadsheet.
Right.
This is a spreadsheet, right?
Mhm.
Brian, if this is a spreadsheet, let's see if we find another one. Okay, so let me go to here. So basically, what are my fields in this spreadsheet?
B9. B for the column and then 9 for the row.
Right, so what are my fields? My fields are my columns. So date is a field, right? Open is a field, high is a field, right? So you can think about my column headings are what we consider to be fields in a database. Each of those rows are my, what we call the records in a database. So for a spreadsheet, usually rows are records, fields are what?
Columns.
Columns. Everything's easy when you know it, right? In technology, what they're doing, a lot of times they're using terminology you're not familiar with, but guess what? A lot of it you know already. It's just you use it in different ways, Kelly. You say, let's put column headings on it, and let's put, for instance, even if I gave a student grade book, right? I'd have what? I have a name, right? C number and test 1, test 2, right? And then I'd have, what would I have among the records? The rows, they would be what? Student, right? Each of those could be students, right? And then I could have a number of them. Sometimes they call these sheets, they sometimes call them tables in database terms. There's different types of ways to relate it, because I'll have one data, so I'll have a physician table, I'll have a patient table, right? I can have different physicians among hospitals, and I can relate them among tables. And then I have keys that I can relate. So I want a unique key. The unique key is what? A unique key would be what? A unique column heading, right? So the unique key, for instance, for a student database would be what? C number, right? It's unique only to you. I don't share your C number with you. So why is that important? Because I want to find exactly you, right? Why is last name not good? Because we can share that last name. Why is address not good? Because we can share that. It's common sense, right? Cindy, you know that, but it's just in those types of terms. Everybody with me? So this is important that in a database, when I go back to that databases, that what is a database composed of? It's composed of data, and what you said was great, that it's a structured set of data. It's not just, and what way I want to improve, Ricky, what you said, it's just not stuff put in there, but what, Ty? What's the key word? Is structured.
Right.
That we have a set of structure. And you remember last time we talked about XML, and I talked about HL7. Everybody remember that? And basically what XML is for, it's a markup language. It's an extensible markup language that users can put their own tags with. So you remember, for instance, when I say view page source, right? This source right here is what kind of markup language?
HTML.
Yes, right here, HTML. And basically what those markup languages are good for is they have, you see this, they have little markup languages. Within the brackets, they're markup languages. And remember, what markup languages did I tell you about last week? HTML, what else? XML, and SGML, which was just a standard, basically, markup languages that was used standard. But the common ones are, and when I talk about it, is I'm dealing with HTML, and HTML is for what? Hypertext markup language, and who cares what it stands for, right? What is it for? Who can tell me? Websites to do what? To show what? Show the content of a website. To make it look good, a website. So basically, when you go down and look at any of, you see this, where it says here title, right? What I see in black is what somebody wrote, right? And how do you end a tag? If this begins a tag title, James, how do you end a tag? Backslash, and it's the same name. These are what we call, these tags are predefined. What does it mean predefined? That in the language, somebody defined tags. Title is one tag. There is, that you can do it, and you can see here, this is meta. What is meta? Meta is metadata in the way, not for it to be displayed for the end user, but for what? Anybody know what metadata is used for? Yes.
Building what pages?
What?
Building what pages?
Yeah, but what is it used for? It does build web pages, but what is it used for? Who takes care of the meta tags? This is important to know. Roy, what's a meta tag? And if we don't know, what are we supposed to do? Look it up. And once we look it up, maybe we'll remember it a little bit better too. What is a meta tag used for?
I think it's just content stored.
Content stored for what? What's the purpose? Look
For
at this.
queries.
Huh?
Is it for queries?
For what kind of queries?
Like when you're searching for.
Right,
certain-
so who should pick it up? Is all the search engines pick those meta tags up so they know that this is what your website is about. So it's for what they call web crawlers. Anybody ever hear of a web crawler?
Wouldn't you describe it as like a kind of coding thing they use to search on your website and find?
Yeah,
specific-
usually, what do you think? Do you think Google just has a bunch of people sitting there and how do they think to make you number one in Google, right? To make something relevant, right? Is basically they do what they call software bots. You ever heard of a bot? It's basically a program that, and they call it a web crawler. It basically goes through all websites and tries to figure out what's that website about. And what you do is you give them the meta tags, give the web crawler or the software tags to describe what this website is about. So if you were University of Miami, go to if we went to miami.edu and looked at the page source, we'd see different meta tags. But this was on Microsoft stock and Yahoo Finance, right? So the content was MSFTY. William, why is it MSFT here? Yeah, that's the symbol for Microsoft. Then you see Microsoft Corporation. I downloaded historical prices, Microsoft Corporation, right? Historical, those are meta, right? And here's some more meta tags that tell me about the content. Here it tells me about the properties. See how this is all meta? This is the content to be able to do this. And then all of a sudden here, I have another HTML that says a link, right? And so that link will go. This is all HTML. Now, if I do HL, let's see if we can do. And notice what's HL7. HL7 is a, look at this. What do you think? You see this aspirin, body weight, body height. I want to get a tag that says body height. I want to get a tag that says body weight. I want to get a tag that maybe is going to be on this on a way in which I'm going to be able to look for aspirin. I'm going to be a way for the diagnostics. HL7 then allows for interoperability between electronic systems. So it's going to be the tags, the difference between, put this in your notes, the difference between XML and HTML is HTML is predefined, XML or HL7 is user defined. So the healthcare of HL7 creates their own tags. Relevant to what? Health data. Why is that good and who cares? So that way it makes it easier for me to share relevant data types. It basically makes it easier to share those relevant fields. So when I create a database, I can call that field anything I want.
Right.
But if I have that HL7 standard, it'll convert it, that will all then have that same name. So then we can find then all those diabetes patients that are Hispanic, that are female, between 40 and 50 and use this medication, and then we can find out their effectiveness. And with a body weight or a BMI, do you understand? That we can start dealing with more effective health care. Because now everything's in what? Silos. There's an incentive for everyone. The way that our system has worked is there's incentive everybody to keep their data. Even it's hard to share that data with the end user, and then that end user to get it and to share with the family. They say, hey, this should be done for the good of everyone. Everybody with me? So back to, I want to show you in that chapter, they throw so much at us of what's going to be important there. Databases, you see why data is so important. You see databases here, which was beautiful that Ty gave us the definition, and then comes data warehouse. I know what a warehouse is, right? Something where it stores a lot of hardware warehouse or whatever. So what's a data warehouse?
For reporting.
So give me a definition. And you don't have to get it from the top of your head, right? Every time, you don't need it from the top of the head.
It's a large store of data accumulated from a wide range of sources within a company.
So, data warehouse, what do we say?
Yes.
Okay.
Used with a wide amount of data.
Oh, so it's data, different sources,
Usually within the same company.
okay. What else? Any other definitions we find? What did we find? Liz, what did we find? I don't need a call, right? What did we find, James?
So it contains data from a variety of sources, which we said, but it also is cleaned and stored in a way that to be accessed by multiple dimensions.
Okay. Cleaned, we put it through the washing machine, and then what else do we do? And we,
Accessed by multiple dimensions.
okay, access. What else did we find? Anything else? So how's that different than an EHR, or is it?
Can we try
Everybody-
some examples?
Hmm?
Can we try an example of a data warehouse? Or no?
EHR holds a warehouse, what's the difference?
It's put like all the data from the EHR, so it just takes all that and puts it in different, I guess, buckets, and then usually organizations report out of their data warehouse.
Okay. Let's go back, what's the purpose of the data warehouse? First of all, put this in your notes. A data warehouse is not live transactional data. A data warehouse is not live transactional data. So an EHR, Cindy, is going to be live, right? I'm going to look at your record, right? Or I'm the physician, I'm going to look at all my patients' records that I have rights to, right? That's the EHR, that's already what I have. The data warehouse is used within companies to do data reporting and to do studies about their data, and it can come from outside sources as well. So it is involving data. There are databases, but it's used for reporting services, and it is non-transactional. And sometimes I even have something called, within a data warehouse, called the data mart. Look that up. Data mart. Sounds like a little supermarket. You know, like the little corner kiosk. So, what's a data mart?
Also, that at the warehouse.
Yeah, it's a subset subset of the warehouse, and it's usually a subset of the warehouse that we usually want to do a specific study upon. So anybody has taken statistics before? Raise your hand. You've taken statistics before. You know, anybody hear about hypothesis testing? So basically we have a hypothesis and we're going to gather data, Cindy, on just that data that's going to pertain to our hypothesis. So I want to do a study on diabetes in Hispanic women. So I'll take a data mark. I'm not going to take all the data from all the EHR that I have access to. I'll get it de-identified, but before I get it de-identified, I'll be able then to do what? To be able to pull out females, right? To pull out Hispanic females, to pull out Hispanic females that have type 2 diabetes, Hispanic females that have, and then maybe I'll even do a study that have certain, that have had diabetes for more than a year and look at the success rate. Then I'll create that. Within that, I'll do a data mart and then I'll do a hypothesis study on that. But it won't be live data. And it usually won't be in that data study, especially in healthcare, it will be de-identified. Then I'll talk about that population of what is the best care, the best practices, and then I can share it within my organization and outside my organization. And sometimes that data warehouse, if other people want to share it, then it can come. So now what people are saying, even in the blockchain and others, is saying maybe what you want to do is you want to be able to share your data if you'll get remunerated, saying I'll share my data if I can be part of that study. I'm willing to share my data. And sometimes they may be giving you tokens, maybe they'll be giving it in terms of some type of remuneration, and maybe in the possibility, if we can find some good, effective outcomes, we'll share that. You'll be the first to be able to share that with. Everybody with me? So that's with my data warehouse that you can think about with all of these. I'm trying to just point out of what happens here, and that healthcare data again is the quality, the information, the statistics, you know, and then healthcare, and then of course the ICDs, right, are my coding that you can think about. And why are we doing IC10? We're going to actually, what's the difference between IC9 and IC10? The versions, right? And what are they trying to do? If it's a new and improved version, what are they doing? You think they have more classifications or less? More. Why?
Because they wanted to make the diagnoses more specific.
More specific, so I can do what? I can get better healthcare. And so when I do this, I can really find out more rather than generalized information. And what our systems are trying to do, besides getting out the data, is to then gain some knowledge. Chelsea, can you be so kind and fill some water for me? I'm not going to be able to continue, but I'll be like these little puppets, right? Puppets and data. Okay, can you imagine? Okay, I'll mime my lecture, okay? What else is, so that's the idea of that population health. You see that whole idea that if I can get my statistics, then I can summarize and then try to make some hypotheses and some conclusions about my population health. Okay? Did that help? In giving the idea, because sometimes when in reading this, we get so, I don't want you to get so hung up on all these acronyms that you say, what's the whole purpose of this, you know? Data, and this is key. If we can get a handle of this big data and where this data is coming from, that's going to be that key to where we were. And let me just do here in the same thing. So in those key terms is what we want to do is, besides getting these electronic health records and having that interoperability, is having these systems start learning from each other. And along with this data, thank you so much, I appreciate it. Is we have a term called data mining. And what do we find out there? Katie, data mining, what do we got?
The process of discovering patterns in large data sets involving them to the intersection of machine learning statistics and databases.
Okay, so let's go slowly. She did such a good job. Now we gotta make sense of it, huh, Kaylee? So what does it say, data mining? Read it, the first part slowly.
The process of discovering patterns in large
Okay,
data
so we
sets.
got discovery of patterns. What else?
In large data sets.
Okay, so large data sets. Okay, what else?
Involving methods at the intersection of machine learning.
Okay, so we got intersection of machine learning, okay,
Statistics
statistics,
and database systems.
do we have large amounts of data in healthcare? Any problem, anybody have any doubt about that? We can get large amounts of data. The whole idea is what the key here is we want to find patterns. I have all those patterns, now what do I want to do? It's almost like discovery, right? Of now what can I see among the patterns? So if I want to do in terms of ethnic, let's even start with a lot of studies now are being done in South Florida under the Hispanic community. Why? Because we've got a large number of Hispanics, right? Do they have issues, Yami, in general in health issues? Quite a bit, right? So if I start doing that, let me find then patterns that I can discover in my data rather than anecdotes. So we can kind of together figure out some anecdotes that you can come up with. But let's find if I have large data sets, let the computer come up with patterns easier than a human being. And then we can verify it. And then we have something called machine learning. Kylie, and you're on a roll, right? We got to figure out what machine learning is. We got statistics, right? You taking a statistics course?
Mm-hmm.
So we got an idea what statistics. Database, we already talked about. Ty was great in turning about that structure, right? So now everybody has to try to figure out what machine learning is. It sounds good that the machine learns. Learn. It's a machine, learn. Knock on the door, learn, right? I need to learn, right? What does it mean, machine learning? So Faith, what is machine learning?
Isn't it when, like?
I don't want to have isn't it when. Look it up. I don't want to isn't it when. So look it up. What do we got, Kelly?
Systems can learn from data, and that way they can identify patterns and like make decisions with just using the system instead of humans like interfering and error coming in.
Okay, so learn from patterns. What else? So I got learning from patterns. What else?
It's a branch of artificial intelligence.
A branch of AI.
It's a
Okay.
set of algorithms that will correct itself.
Set of algos correcting itself. give you the example of, credit card information. Anybody ever get fraud detection call on a credit card stolen? They use machine learning. How do they do it?
You use it to try and figure out what your spending history is, so if there's something off, I could be out of the
Well,
mill.
basically, this is what they do.
Your card for the next 2 weeks.
Basically, what they're doing, they're looking for patterns, right? And how do they figure out even those patterns is they basically teach, Faith, right? They teach, there's a teaching, training the computer. And one type of training is called neural networks. Anybody hear about neural networks before? What have you heard about neural networks?
It's the basis of deep learning.
The spaces of deep learning, and where else have you heard about neurons?
In your body?
In your body, right, in our brain, right, that we have the synapses, right, and they're connecting. So basically, it's part of artificial intelligence. And why do they call it artificial intelligence? It's not human intelligence. We're creating, it's artificial intelligence that we're trying to get the machine to think like a human. And who is trying to teach it? And then there are basically studies now that we should start worrying about is AI is taking over a lot of this robotics. And the question somebody was asking is who is programming these computers? Just like the autonomous vehicles, right, that are part of AI and vision and things like that, and all the machines is dealing with, it's rule-based. And what do we want is it to improve as time goes on. A regular computer program, how many people have taken statistics and used like Excel or anything else to figure out something? You put in those numbers with those formulas, you'll get that same answer every time you run it. I can run it 10,000 times, I can run it 1 time, I can run it 500 times, and I will given that same formula and given those same numbers, I will get the answer all the time. But what happens if that function in Excel is incorrect? Will it correct itself? No. So what I want is I want to train, and this is part of neural networks, is what they do is they train and they try to have the computer improve. Basically make less errors. And where it's great is thinking about it in diagnostics. They're using AI now for a number of, in radiology. Radiology, anybody want to go into radiology? If you go into radiology, it's basically, I think there'll be very few radiologists. But what the radiologist will do will help train the computer to try to find patterns that will detect earlier than a human being can find those patterns of what looks malignant, what looks non-malignant, even among what is malignant will be what turns out to be something that we shouldn't treat, something that we should just monitor, and something that we should treat aggressively. How do they do it in terms of patterns? So if you think about it, they've done it with skin cancer, that I can give it then. If I have a mole, then let me see, does that mole, basically before even I send it to the lab, taking a picture, a human being says that looks suspicious. They found already that the machines can be more accurate than a qualified dermatologist looking at a mole. Right? So you start thinking about those patterns. So the simple one where everybody can understand in transactions of credit card fraud is I put them in buckets. One, I have a bucket of clean transactions. or non-fraud. Then I have fraudulent transactions. And I train the computer to try to find what are the attributes of fraudulent transactions versus clean transactions. Everybody understand? So what the credit cards company said, do they know what a good transaction was in the past? Yeah. Who has a credit card? You made good transactions, they were valid transactions, they know it. And then, and who has ever gotten where something was fraudulent? Somebody, so now they'll know what happened, Ricky.
It was super weird. So I had just gotten my credit card 2 weeks before, and I guess machine learning knew that I didn't usually buy groceries. So when I tried to buy a gallon of milk, they froze my account for another 14 days.
Yeah.
Yay, no credit card 2 weeks after. And they're like, oh, it's because you've never bought thing. The machine didn't know you bought
So it was a false positive.
It was a false positive on my account for a gallon of milk.
Okay, so it was a false positive. Who else had an incident? Yes, Katie?
Yeah, I had one last week actually. I bought like textbooks online or something from Amazon, and like the next day something popped up from on a website, and then like something in Canadian dollars, like MX called me immediately the next day, and they said it popped up on the radar.
Okay, and somebody used your card? Or
Yeah,
you, was
on the
you,
computer somehow got my information. It's like I had the card with me.
but somebody was using Canadian dollars?
Yeah.
So here's a false positive. Here they were accurate.
Yeah, twice.
Twice. So the key here is twice. So we know already. So what they have to do for Kaylee's part is they know that clean. So they put her fraudulent transaction in, and then they know the attribute. One attribute would probably be using another denomination of currency other than the one that they use, right? So Canadian dollar, I had one where and I was just shocked at it, they didn't pick up, it said RU for rubles, on my bank account, and I said, are you crazy? And then they just shut it down right away, there was no investigation. But I would have thought RU, it would have been a better one. So this one they put in with, so here, this problem with Ricky's, what they want to do is they know they made an error, so they want to bring it back and they want to train it again. That just because he did the milk that, now he's on his own and he's buying milk, right? That they should be able now to go back and say, for these people, just because they bought milk wasn't the key. I've had it when I go abroad, or I rent a car. I used to rent a car, and now I take more Uber. But when I rent a car, I would fill up at the end because I didn't want to pay the gas. When you have to return the car back, and you have to pay another, 50 cents or $1. I'm so cheap. I say I'll fill up, $3 or something, and that $3 at a gas station hit the bill, because usually that's where thieves go when they steal a credit card physically. They'll go to a gas station first and just fill up a little bit just to see if the card hasn't been stopped already. So then what they'll do is they'll find out what are the errors, and then once they train it, it's pretty interesting, and we can go over some exercises with it. They have it now on the cloud that you can get their software to do this even for free. Once you train it, then what you will do is see how accurate it is, and you'll give it a third of the records, which you know the answers to, and try to figure out from the computer how accurate they'll be. And those records, now everybody knows what a record is. What's a record? What's a record? What's a record in the spreadsheet? It's a row, which is what? Let's say you, right? Your transaction there. Once that transaction, they want to see if they diagnose this was a fraud and it wasn't a fraud, or if they got it incorrect, then they bring it back. And they're giving all those attributes. Anybody know what betas are? Like, anybody do a regression function where you have you have weights? Think about it, you have weights. So basically they'll adjust the weights. And they may say, Kaylee, you know what's an important way is currency. And it may be in terms of gas station at a small amount. You know, and then it's also my pattern, right? I usually don't fill up, I only fill up when I have, you know, less than a half a tank. I usually don't fill up for $3. And it's usually not in another city or state, you know. But maybe they should have picked it up, and maybe what they should have done is gone to my credit card and said, seeing that I had a ticket with American Airlines going to Washington DC. So that and had a rental car that I paid at the rental car, and that may have picked up that it wasn't a non-transaction. Because it's costing them money also to send out that alert. But that's how they improve more and more. And credit cards have spent millions of dollars on this neural net, AI, data mining technique, and where there's a lot now is in machine learning in terms of the same thing. When I now have, I have one malignant tumor, one non-malignant tumor, I give it, even I know the results, and give it to the machine and see how well it discovers it. Everybody with me? 4, David, because some of this stuff you know and others you'll learn. So what is BI? Business intelligence, and what is it? John, what did you get?
So I have, it's a technology-driven process for analyzing data and presenting actionable information to help executives.
So basically it's a way to do, again, data, and here what the key is what?
Making it actionable.
Actionable, and making it in a way that what non-statisticians can understand. Really, huh? Because what do they say? Executive, what do they say? What's it be presentable for?
Executives.
Yeah. So they kind of want to say executive, they don't want to say executives are dummies, you know, what they want to say is that the executives want to see it in a concise manner, executives want to see what. So if you then review this, now go ahead and find what are popular BI vendors, BI software. Go ahead and search now BI software, BI vendors. Microsoft is one, they haven't even, what's in they call it Beyond, right? Believe it. What else?
IBM.
IBM has one. Who else?
SAP, customer reports.
SAP. So if I looked at BI vendors, right, that the leaders then, right, of analytic, Gartner, what are they saying, the Gartner, has anybody here heard about Gartner? Yes, no? Okay. Just so you know, think about this company called Gartner is basically a consulting company that a lot of CIOs, CEOs, people in IT use as kind of a research group. And a lot of times people look at vendors want to be in their auspices, so you can think about it. Modern analytics and business intelligence platforms, deployment increasingly cloud-based. Everybody knows what that is. It's not on the premise, it's in the cloud. Data and analytic leaders are upgrading traditional solutions as well as innovating the ease and use of analytics, basically making sense out of my data. So you can see here Microsoft, Click, and basically it's a way in which to give you data that's important to you and to summarize that data that you can make some decisions upon. So for instance, if I have a number of hospitals, I can find out easily which hospital is more profitable than the other. I can find out which sections of the hospital is more profitable than the other. I can find out where do I have more problems than in other areas. So these are a number of companies that are trying to give the executive reports that they don't have to know Excel, they don't have to do a lot of forecasting and they'll get their reports, and every day or on the minute, they can get on demand, see how I may be the sales executive, and you may be the CIO, you may be the CFO, you may be the director of medicine, and among all of us, we will get a different view of and we will only get data that's important for us to make decisions upon. Everybody clear? That's what that is. Okay. So, the next part is I want to go into the data analytics, and I want to go into the algorithmic trading, and I want to have us do an exercise, and also because we're not going to meet next week, I want to take even part of the time to finish the exercise in class. Because what's the problem is, you can't even come next week and say, hey, there's a problem here. I want us to ready that we do part of the exercise in class together. How does that sound? So we're on hands-on, so when we get stuck, we can help each other. So you want to take a 5-minute break, and then we can stretch, and then we can kind of get into it, and we can be fresh. And then I think that's what we'll do. How does that sound? And then I'll answer any questions and any of your readings that you didn't understand. But sometimes in times of the reading, there's so much there that I want to just emphasize what is key. Okay? So let's stretch, and then you can go on, and I'll get ready for the next part. Okay? You can get up, you can get your water, you can fill your bottles and so forth. How many people have Windows on their machine or have Windows machine? Raise your hand. You have a Windows machine? Raise your hand. You have one? And then? I do. Oh, good. Okay. You can do some things. assignment with, the health sector?
Yes.
Okay. What did you find here?
What do you mean,
What did you,
So we listed on the top part, the top 10 performing stocks year to date. And we filtered out microcap, and we did anything over 300 million microcap, market cap. So those 10,
wow, look at those percentages, huh?
gorgeous.
That Tandem Diabetes Care?
Yeah,
Did you see,
there was
what, did you
actually-
look at that company?
No, I didn't really. I know the fifth one. It was a recent IPO, and it was with wheat.
What?
A lot of the wheat stocks right now are on fire.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was gonna tell people, yeah, cannabis,
Yeah,
is real,
yeah. You also have that Canopy Growth. Yeah, all the wheat stocks are on fire. So number 5, Tilray.
yeah, that would be interesting to do even for, I think for, I was gonna tell the class for our systems, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
for next time to look at cannabis,
Yeah,
I think
we
that's
did-
gonna be huge, you know?
We did over 300 million because we didn't really want to
Yeah,
get
right.
penny stocks on.
Yeah, no, it's good, and also you can see the trends,
Right.
yeah, so the cannabis and then the diabetes, that's
I
interesting,
didn't
that,
really look, but I know it's a hot penny stock. I don't know if it's a penny stock now because, once they get a hit on one
yeah,
of their
right,
drugs,
right, and the
they go
surgical,
crazy.
and then you just put the.
And then those 4 are the industry performance by, my broker gave me that. So,
Of the market cap, the performances, yeah. So
Yeah,
the
year
year
to
to date,
date.
so among these, it's still not so, it's 28% and 34% of what are the biotech and the healthcare equipment, right?
right, the healthcare equipment right now is doing it, it's also on fire.
Yeah, right, you can see here, even on the 6 month, even on the 6, and also it looks like in the six months, this is the past 6 months?
Yeah, so from Friday or Monday.
Yeah, so you can see a lot of, those would be interesting,
Right,
yeah.
outperformed the S&P. So.
Yeah, so you can see really that the health sector, right?
And then those 10 were just what the individual from last class.
Yeah, Dr. Gerst, you mean?
Yep, Dr. Gerst.
Yeah,
That was his.
Yeah, what you can really see is that healthcare and the biotech and
Yeah, but
cannabis.
biotech is very risky.
Yeah, well, it's volatile.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it basically, what's interesting is you need those strategies to be able to know when to get in
Yeah.
and then when to
To
get.
go long term, it's very risky. I mean,
Yeah.
Teva and.
Well, the Teva wasn't biotech so much, it was more pharma, you know? So, and for a number of years, that was pretty good, you know? But those were kind of issues, but you have to know when to go in, but it's interesting. Okay, very nice, very good. Did a nice job. Okay, and then in
My
the
team,
court, what?
It's a teamwork.
Yeah, no, it's good, okay, and then Corey, Nico, and Ty, what did we do? Did we do something?
Yeah.
So what did we find out?
Well, so that's just basically the industry performance. I just wanted to put that because.
Yeah, that's good, so you can see it's going in what type of trend?
Up.
Up, right,
And then that's the top 10.
okay. And what do we have in the top 10, what looks to be good? So small, I can't see, but what looks to be good? Okay, yeah, let me move this away, I don't need to. Yeah. Looks good. Okay, and then what do we got here? Yeah, and so it's 59, yeah, 40, and this is what, 1 month? Changes, yeah. So this is from January, this is year to date. That's great. Okay, and what else? And these were
Yeah,
the
that's
companies,
top 10.
yeah.
The first one is Mesa Laboratories.
And who went, how much, yeah. Great, very nice. Okay. you the only one? Or? Say what? You're both sick, okay, so can you, take notes for them, okay?
What?
Okay, and what did you find then? Uh-huh. And the A plus and the Bs mean what? Oh, the source are from the street? Okay. And these are kind of like the traditional ones of their market up. Okay.
The top 10 private companies in the healthcare sector.
What?
They're kind of the top 10 private companies.
Yeah.
I saw that list.
Yeah.
Johnson and Johnson.
Yeah, okay. And then Faith, Lorna, and Sean, did you do the assignment?
Yeah, Lorna's in London now. She's far from you, so.
I didn't hear you, can you speak
I
up?
said Lorna's in London.
Oh,
so
okay.
she's
All right.
gonna do her part when she gets back to the country.
Okay,
This is the part I worked on, which is the health services.
Uh-huh.
Their top 10 performing stocks, as of today.
okay. And then Kaylee and John, what did you end up doing?
Just research the top 10 healthcare stocks that I listed them below with their market value.
Okay. All right, and then what else do we got here? Let's see, what else? And of course, documents. And then Gabriel, Kelly, and Danielle.
Yeah, I'm the only one here, but we did the same thing as the last group.
Oh, okay, all right. And then you'll take notes then for your group?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and let them know what's going on. And then, 7, and then, so we got Cindy, Jane, Avaya, and Felipe. Felipe, you joined these folks? What is your major, Felipe?
My major, BT and economics.
Okay, great, so this will be good for you. So maybe later on, Felipe, if they're too big, you'll see how it is if you wanna switch groups to people that have less people that are 2, but that'll be good. So what did you guys do?
We individually looked at the health sector. I specifically looked at the services industry, but I think overall as a group, we looked at the entire health sector.
And then you got some of the same kind of statistics that everybody else did. And you can see kind of the way, and how did that Teladoc do? Again, that if you look at the 121, and what's this Tabula Rasa healthcare, God, they're 200%, huh? That they did.
Yeah, I highlighted in blue the top 10
Okay.
out of that list.
Okay. And William and Danielle and Yami, what did we do?
Yeah, everything is most of the time.
Okay,
Things with the guests spoke about.
okay.
And then
And what else
fit
did you
days
do?
in with the healthcare sector and put the top 10 year to date.
Okay. And Sean and Deb and Isaiah,
Yeah,
Isaiah.
yeah.
so ours is under, that folder.
Mhm.
And what we did is we split up the healthcare industry into like different sectors, so we each looked at different
So
sectors.
we did biotech, I did managed care, so they're kind of like health insurance companies.
And how are they doing the managed care?
Managed care, I mean, it is always flip-flopping, it depends on
I
what
did pharmaceutical.
if there's combinations, say for example, Humana stock went down because the Walmart
Yeah.
merger still hasn't
Right.
occurred yet. And then Aetna went up because they combined with CVS.
Right, so it's a lot of,
There's lots of-
news.
There'll be lots of fluctuation with the stocks, because there'll be news that they'll merge, and then it'll go down because the merger.
You didn't be on which side of the merge you are and who are the competitors coming in, and when Amazon comes in, and
Right.
other ones, yeah. So it's kind of,
And I did a pharmaceutical stocks.
okay. All right, so we got the idea of what's happening. Okay. So, and then, so we got that, and then Liz, Kyle, and Monica, what do we got?
Yeah, we did the same thing as everyone, each individually, we have the top 10 focus
Okay.
stocks
Anything I need to,
under that file.
okay, so we got, so everybody did it. looks like we got a feel for what's happening, where's the future. The only one that's kind of like non-traditional, I think, is what Roy was talking about, is the idea of cannabis. I think, Roy, cannabis is gonna be, that whole group. And as a matter of fact, Dr. Gers was telling me, I met him at another meeting, he brought somebody in from Berkeley, California, and we had a meeting together, and he was telling me he's working with large, I think large firms, even the tobacco firms now are going into cannabis. Now that tobacco isn't as favorable, and they say, hey, we know how to grow stuff, why don't we grow cannabis? And so he's making mergers in with those. And then Cindy, I wanted to thank you for uploading the PowerPoint. And what did you think? I didn't get even feedback. I thought it was pretty interesting in terms of, there's a lot of basic things. And I think it's interesting. Give me feedback then, even during class or after class, and if you think we should invite more guest speakers. But I always like to do that because it brings another added point to you. So he's quite, he's done a lot in the, I guess, mergers and acquisitions, that's his, what?
So we ended up making 2 different lists.
Okay, all right, fine, okay. So let's take all of this and try to create it, combining the healthcare, where's healthcare going in terms of investments and where we should do that. And in terms of, I want to cover this in terms of data and analytics. And this whole idea of software robots, the whole idea of deep learning, the whole idea of artificial intelligence, and combine it all into exercises. In about 3 minutes, no, just kidding. Okay. So, I put a PowerPoint up for you, and you can use that as I go along. It's kind of an overview, and I put that in our regular section of Blackboard under a regular section of BTE 450. So if you go into BTE 450, you can see, I think on the first one, it should be this one, automated algorithmic software trading systems and robotics and applications using big data. This is part of my research that I do, and I do a lot of research in this area and do a lot of presentations in this area. This one PowerPoint that I did was for a group for Stanford University, and especially looking at for women in data science. So I did this especially for them, but this was just an aside that they've done studies that women-led companies, a fortune of 500, their stock performed better than 3 times better than the S&P 500. So their companies did better, and just kind of to give the women in the audience a way in which that they can do pretty well. Okay, but this is what I want you to understand before we do any analytics and before we start dealing with any data mining or neural networks or deep learning, is this idea of what an algorithm is. In order for us to get the computer to analyze, we first have to clearly define the instructions to the computer. That's an algorithm. And what we're gonna look at tonight is the way in which to do automated trading, which is the process of using computers programmed to follow a defined set of instructions for placing the trade in order to generate profits. And what we want to do is more than automated trading right now by the computer. What percent of computer trades are done by a computer without any human intervention? Any ideas?
90%.
90% at least. So we think about that, and so if somebody can manipulate that, you know, it can really bring down the whole market, right? They had some Swedish guys where you have these flash crashes. You heard about that? Where the market can go down. You've had instances. One of the things that you know, everybody's worried about terrorists setting off bombs somewhere, where cyber is really what can bring down. Think about the electrical grids, right? Bringing down. Think about hospitals, right? A little thing like, you remember we talked about the ransomware the other time, where what they were doing is just getting in and developing. Think about that whole area of IoTs getting into hospitals. That can make it quite accessible. And then what we have is automated algorithmic software trading robots, and we can have these automated, just like I talked about those robots, those web crawlers that pick up metadata to make you high on the search engines to search. Now they have automated algorithmic software robots as well. So the advantages of those automated trading systems is, again, sometimes minimizing those emotions where it takes people away, the ability to look back on my historical data, the ability to improve a lot of the order entry and to diversify a lot of the trade. The algorithm may not be good, or the systems change.